Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News and your daily wrestling newscast for Monday, September 26, 2022. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with some news from WWE. Drew McIntyre was pulled from the company's weekend house shows due to food poisoning, according to a report from PW Insider. McIntyre was replaced by Braun Strowman in tag team matches with The New Day against the Usos and Solo Sikoa at Saturday night's main event house show in Stockton, California on Saturday, and the Sunday Stunner house show in Fresno, California. McIntyre, who was described in the report as very ill, used IV treatment to help him get through Friday night's SmackDown segment, an in-ring promo also involving Karrion Kross and Scarlett. The company then made the decision to pull McIntyre from the weekend house shows to give him a chance to recover. The two weekend events mark Braun Strowman's first house show appearances since returning to WWE earlier on this month. His last WWE house show match took place March 1st, 2020 in Syracuse, New York, an Intercontinental title defense against Cesaro. In AEW news, following the recent reports of Malachi Black requesting and being granted his conditional release from AEW, it appears that another member of the House of Black is going to be taking some time away from the spotlight as well. F4W Online reported that AEW star Buddy Matthews announced to the crowd in Rhode Island following a match against JT Dunn for Fight Life Pro Wrestling that he was, quote, going to be the bearer of some bad news, and intimated to the crowd that he too was going to be stepping back from active competition. In Matthews' promo, he said, "Unfortunately, I, like some other members, need to go away for a while. I need to recalibrate. I need to figure out some things. As my brother Malachi once said, this isn't goodbye, this is see you later." Matthews was recently involved in an angle at this past week's AEW Grand Slam 2 edition of Rampage at Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, New York, where he was misted in the eyes by the Great Muta in a surprise appearance following Matthews and Brody King's no DQ tag match against Sting and Darby Allin. Additionally, Fightful also reported that this was done to write Matthews off TV for the time being, but was unable to confirm Matthews' situation with AEW, with Fightful also reporting that Matthews has, quote, expressed dissatisfaction regarding his situation, unquote, several times during the last few months. Turning to Impact Wrestling, in an update on the status of Bobby Fish, PW Insider reported yesterday that Fish is not yet officially signed with Impact, although he did film some backstage material at the Victory Road event last Friday to be used on future episodes of Impact Wrestling. Fish made his Impact debut at Victory Road, cutting an in-ring promo. He is scheduled to work Bound for Glory on October 7th, and the TV tapings to be held the next night, both in Albany, New York. In news from outside the ring, former wrestling manager Teddy Long announced in a video on Sunday the reason why everyone seems to have been blocked by him on Twitter. Long goes on to state that his account had been hacked and then humorously thanked the hacker for doing so as it got him trending for the third time during his social media presence on Twitter, and that Long still got it. Long goes on to lightheartedly joke that he didn't block anybody and he doesn't want anyone upset with him. Long trended at various points over the weekend with a litany of current and former workers along with fans flocking to Twitter to check and see if Long had them blocked on the platform, which included people such as Scott Armstrong, the Blue Meanie, Renee Paquette, Chris Bay, and Karrion Kross, with seemingly many more people that cannot all be mentioned in this single report facing the ire of Long's alleged hacker. In some very unorthodox wrestling news, a sheriff's deputy and two corrections officers have lost their jobs due to an incident that occurred last June in which they engaged in staged wrestling matches with inmates at the Fairfield County Jail in Lancaster, Ohio, according to the Lancaster Eagle Gazette. Corrections officers Kyle Archibald and Landon Talbot resigned, and Deputy Sean Pettit was dismissed after the conclusion of a lengthy internal investigation in which it was determined that during an evening in late June, they engaged in consensual matches with 3 inmates in the confinement area of the jail. No injuries were reported as a result of the matches. A third corrections officer, Kayla Doss, was also given a 10-day unpaid suspension for failing to report the incident in a timely fashion. After supervisors were made aware of the incident 5 days after it occurred, all suspected parties were put on administrative leave. "This is ridiculous," Sheriff Alex Lappe said to Jeff Barron of the Eagle Gazette. "It's unacceptable behavior and won't be tolerated." Pretty obvious you can see how that could have gone bad in 100 different ways. In New Japan Pro Wrestling news, the company announced the full cards for their upcoming Royal Quest 2 shows in London next month. The first night on Saturday, October 1st, will be headlined by FTR defending the IWGP Tag Team Championship against Aussie Open, with Will Ospreay facing off against Shota Umino in the semi-main event. The second show on Sunday, October 2nd, will see Tetsuya Naito face off against Zack Sabre Jr., with the winner getting a future title shot against Will Ospreay for his IWGP United States title. The semi-main event will see Hikuleo, who just turned on the Bullet Club, team with his brother Tama Tonga and Hiroshi Tanahashi to face Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, and IWGP World Champion Jay White. Also on the London shows, Gabriel Kidd will make his return to New Japan Pro Wrestling, his first appearances since May, facing Dan Maloney in a singles match on night 1 and competing in an 8-man tag on night 2. Kidd had announced earlier this year he was taking some time away from pro wrestling for mental health reasons. The IWGP Women's Championship Tournament will also officially begin on the second night, as Stardom's Jazzy Gabert will face Pro Wrestling Eve-based wrestler Ava White. New Japan also announced 3 additional matches to their Declaration of Power event taking place at Sumo Hall on October 10th. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Taiji Ishimori will face off against Kushida in a non-title match. Shingo Takagi will face El Phantasmo in a Who's Your Daddy match for the King of Pro Wrestling 2022 Provisional Trophy. And Red Narita will return from his 3-year excursion at the LA Dojo against a mystery opponent. Before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page, and for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast, and remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.